David Muir.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm David Muir from ABC News headquarters here in New York. We are interrupting regularly scheduled programming to bring you breaking news at this hour. Attorney General Jeff Sessions has now resigned at the request of the president. It takes effect immediately. President Trump wasting no time, beginning to reorganize his cabinet after yesterday's midterm election. As you know, his relationship with Attorney General Sessions has been contentious for quite some time. The president never forgiving him for recusing himself in the Russia investigation. It was just a short time ago we were carrying the news conference, President Trump turning away questions about whether he would replace Sessions. But he has now tweeted the news announcing that Matthew Whitaker, chief of staff to Sessions, will actually become the new acting attorney general. I want to get right to our chief White House correspondent, Jonathan Karl, because this came swift after this news conference where he would not take questions on Sessions.
It sure did, David, and I am told that this was directly in response to a request from the president asking for that letter of resignation, asking him to resign. I'm told it will take place effective immediately. The president had been furious at his attorney general really for about a year and a half, ever since he recused himself after he became attorney general. And I had a rather extensive conversation with somebody familiar with Sessions' thinking on all of this, who said that throughout the last year and a half, while the president, and many times in very public ways, eviscerated him in that move of recusing himself from the Russia investigation, that the president never directly brought those concerns up with Sessions, never once called Sessions to complain about it. And over all of this time, he never asked Sessions to resign. So the request finally came after the midterm elections, and Sessions responded immediately to resign. It's interesting, David, in the letter of resignation that Sessions turned into the White House to the president, he said, in part, he talked about his legacy as Attorney General, implementing the president's agenda. But then he said, most importantly, in my time as Attorney General, we have restored and upheld the rule of law, a glorious tradition that each of us has a responsibility to safeguard. And I am told by, again, somebody familiar with Sessions' thinking, that he never once had any second thoughts about his decision to recuse himself from the Russia investigation or how he handled it. He simply believed that in terms of rule of law, he was somebody that was in the leadership of the Trump campaign, that it would be entirely inappropriate for him to have anything to do with supervising an investigation into that campaign's activities.
All right. Never any second thoughts to recusing himself. John Karl, our thanks to you. And in fact, in that letter that John cites there moments ago, right at the very top, he said, "Dear Mr. President, at your request, I am submitting my resignation." There you see the letter on your screen. I want to show viewers at home the tweet from the president that just came in a short time ago saying, "We are pleased to announce that Matthew Whitaker, Chief of Staff to Attorney General Jeff Sessions at the Department of Justice, will become our new acting Attorney General here in the U.S. He will serve our country well." The president tweets that, again, just coming in moments ago. I do want to bring in George Stephanopoulos because obviously, George, the bigger question here, what does this mean for Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein? What does it mean for the Mueller investigation?
That's right. Right now, Rod Rosenstein is still overseeing the Mueller investigation. The new acting attorney general has not been confirmed by the Senate. He can't take over the investigation right now. But we also know that the president was very unhappy at times with Rod Rosenstein. It looked like just 6 weeks before the election that he was on his way out as well. In fact, it had been reported he had gone to the White House to offer his resignation. The president put that on hold, didn't want to do anything before the midterms. We'll see if the president prepared to make a move on that now. What's amazing is how long it took for the president to push Jeff Sessions out. As you said, the original sin for Jeff Sessions in the president's mind was recusing himself from the Russia investigation, was not taking the reins of that investigation. And what we saw over the last year and a half was an extraordinary, never seen before public feud between the president and his own attorney general. But as John Paul was pointing out, Jeff Sessions saw himself working for the department, preserving the traditions and the strength of the Department of Justice by withstanding that assault and not leaving on his own. He's out now. Mueller's still hard at work.
George, of course, you and I were on the air into the wee hours of the morning, and the exit polls showing waning support from the American people when it comes to the Mueller investigation. That could also reflect the sheer amount of time that this investigation's been underway and that we haven't heard from Robert Mueller yet. Any expectation that we would hear in the coming weeks what Robert Mueller has discovered?
Well, it seemed like he abided by this Justice Department norm and not acting within the 60-day window of an election. We know his grand jury has been active. We know he's been taking a hard look at one of the president's oldest friends and associates, Roger Stone. We know he's been preparing a report on the president's activities as well, and there's been a back and forth for several months with the president and his team over whether the president would answer questions about possible obstruction of justice and collusion with Russia. I would expect we would see some actions from Robert Mueller relatively soon, perhaps before the end of the year. But as you know, he doesn't say anything to anyone outside his team, not one single.
George Stephanopoulos on the swift move from President Trump today, just a day after the midterms, asking for the resignation of his Attorney General Jeff Sessions. AG Sessions now saying he will, in fact, resign at the request of the president. Let's bring in our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas, who joined us from Washington as well. They are clearly reacting to this at the Justice Department.
Yes, they are. I can tell you that this had been anticipated. The expectation was that Sessions would be resign or be fired. He makes it very clear in this letter that this quote is at your request. I am submitting my resignation. The letter is to the President of the United States. And again, Sessions had been under complete and utter fire from the President, under constant attack in terms of ridicule, and sources and people close to him said that he did what he had to do in terms of the recusal because department guidelines said that he had to do it. And in some ways, many at the Justice Department were surprised that the president continued to attack him when simply the guidelines mandated that Sessions had to recuse himself. Now, some in the president's corner are saying basically that the president said openly that he was upset that Sessions took the job knowing that this potential was there, that he might have to recuse himself. But right now, the Justice Department is in the very unusual situation of Sessions stepping down, the Deputy Attorney General who's overseeing the Mueller investigation on thin ice as well. And again, there's a lot of uncertainty at the Justice Department, but the people will attempt to do their jobs even under these difficult circumstances. David.
Pierre, stick with us here. I want to bring in former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who's also with us all night long covering the midterm elections, and now with us on AG Jeff Sessions, now resigning moments ago. And Governor Christie, what does this mean for Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, who of course is overseeing the Mueller investigation? What's his future look like?
Well, that's to be determined, David, but I really believe that the president will leave Rod in place to continue to oversee the Mueller investigation. I don't think that he'll make a change in that regard, at least not now. But in terms of Rod's long-term, his long-term viability position, I think that's something that he and the president are going to have to discuss. And that's kind of natural at the midterm, as you know, for a lot of folks to be making that kind of assessment. But I think today is really about Jeff Sessions and the breakdown of the relationship between the president and the attorney general. And I don't believe that today has any direct impact on Rod Rosenstein.
Governor Christie, you know that your name has been floated as an idea, a potential suggestion for attorney general inside this Trump White House. Would you take the call?
David, as I've said all along, there have been lots of different offers for me to join the administration since the beginning of the administration, which I haven't accepted. But I always say this, if the president calls you for anything, like he did, for instance, in asking me to chair the opioid commission for him, and I agreed to do that, you always take a call from your president, no matter which party, and you listen to what I have to say. But as you know, with all of you at ABC and a number of other things that I have going on. So it's not like I'm looking for work, David.
Let me just ask you.
I'm plenty busy.
Yeah, I don't want to put you on the spot as far as whether or not you would take the job, but if you were to get the phone call, what would you advise the president? He has listened to your advice before. What would you advise him about protecting the Mueller investigation and Rod Rosenstein?
Well, what I would say to him is pick the attorney general that you want, first and foremost, so that we avoid in the future the type of really difficult conflict that went on between he and Attorney General Sessions, which is not good for the country and it's not good for the department. And so my would be take a deep breath, set up want to be Attorney General for the next 2 years, and get that done first. Then, in conjunction with whoever your new Attorney General designate would be, then decisions need to be made about the rest of the department.
Right.
But I do think that the Mueller investigation is something that it seems to everyone, and I'm in this group, is coming to a conclusion.
And we might seem soon. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm going to wrap
So-
you here. Just we have the battle of the cell phone reception. We got most of what you said there, Governor Christie. And we should point out that this acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker is not recused from the Russia probe. So he is, as the acting Attorney General, he would now be in charge of the Russia probe, a role that Rod Rosenstein has had up until this point. We'll continue to report this out with our entire team. Our thanks to John, Pierre, George, and Governor Christie. On the breaking news, Attorney General Jeff Sessions resigning just a short time ago at the request of the president. We'll have much more later on World News Tonight and right here at abcnews.com all afternoon. I'm David Muir. Good day.
David, thank you. We're going to continue ABC News' coverage right now. Here, I'm John Santucci alongside Catherine Faulders in our Washington bureau. We thought we maybe have a quiet afternoon after the president's marathon press conference, but you know the nerve of us for thinking that. Attorney General Jeff Sessions just announcing that he is resigning at the request of the president. Something we've been tracking for quite some time. The relationship between these two men definitely fraying over the last 2 years. It began when the Attorney General announced that he was recusing himself for supervising the Russia investigation. Of course, that is the probe that the president has called a witch hunt for over the last year, and it continues to this day. We know that after the election, sources have been telling ABC News that there's going to probably be more action by Bob Mueller and his team of prosecutors, looking at many associates of the president, his close friend and former political advisor, Roger Stone. I do want to go to ABC's Jonathan Karl, our chief White House correspondent. And John, you know, we've been talking about this for quite some time. We know this relationship between these two men has been fraying. But, you know, as much as we thought this was going to come right after the election, I don't think any of us thought it was going to come just the very next day.
I'm a little surprised that it came just after the post-election press conference, indeed. But we knew this was coming. And this has been an extraordinary series of developments. The recusal, which so angered the president, really, I think the one single event since he was sworn in that angered him more than anything else. The fact that Sessions, instead of protecting him from a Russia investigation, was recusing himself and washing his hands of it. Now, we've seen the president publicly lambast the Attorney General. At one point he said, "I don't even have an Attorney General." But I spoke recently, John, with somebody familiar with Sessions' thinking, who said that throughout all of this, the president never once directly took those attacks to Sessions himself, and he never fired Sessions. He never asked Sessions to resign. And what this person told me is that throughout all of it, Sessions' view was that he was doing the president's agenda, implementing the president's agenda at the Department of Justice, and if the president ever wanted him to go, during all this year and a half, almost 2 years of public attacks, that all he had to do was call him up and ask him to resign, and he would have done it in a minute. And that's what's happened here. So let's be clear about one thing. This is a resignation. He was fired. He was asked to resign. Jeff Sessions was fired.
And John, I mean, just talk about the way this relationship, I guess now the bookend of it. I mean, you know as well as I do from covering this campaign, Jeff Sessions was the first U.S. senator, let alone a very big member of the Republican Party, to come out and endorse candidate Donald Trump during the election.
Look, John, and you know this as well as anybody, I think that you could make a compelling case that Donald Trump is not president if not for Jeff Sessions. He was not simply the first senator to endorse Donald Trump. He was arguably the single most sought-after endorsement in a Republican primary. I mean, Ted Cruz practically begged for the endorsement before it happened, because Sessions represented that wing of the Republican Party that was hardline on immigration. And there were, Cruz was going after that vote hard. Others were as well, but particularly Cruz and Donald Trump. And Jeff Sessions took sides, and it was a critical boost for Trump. One other thing, I very important going forward about what happens. You've talked about how Matt Whitaker will now be the acting Attorney General. It's been noted that he has not recused himself from the Russia investigation. But I do not think it is a given, John, that Matt Whitaker will be the person overseeing the Russia investigation. Whitaker, before he became the chief of staff, said a number of things critical of the Mueller investigation, including at one point he actually wrote an op-ed when he was a contributor at CNN, saying that he entirely agreed with the president that if Mueller started investigating the president's finances, that would cross a red line.
Right.
So there will be some significant questions raised now by the newly empowered majority in the House, but also by the same Justice Department ethics lawyers that told Sessions that he really had no choice on recusal. That Matt Whitaker will face a lot of pressure to recuse himself as well.
Let's get more from the Department of Justice. ABC's Chief White House Correspondent Jonathan Karl. Thank you, sir. Let's go to our Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas, because Pierre, I mean, as much as our heads are spinning over here, I'm sure a lot more heads are spinning over at the Department of Justice right now.
They are, but they knew this was coming. It's just stark when it actually does take place. The Attorney General has been under fire from the president for many, many months, but I had some indication that the president would either fire Jeff Sessions or that he would resign relatively soon thereafter the midterms. You saw Senator Lindsey Graham several weeks ago, sort of indicating that the president had the right to have the Attorney General that he wanted, and also with the Senate increasing in the number of Republicans. This clearly gave the president a sense of more latitude to feel like he could get an Attorney General at some point confirmed. But again, the Justice Department will deal with this. Rod Rosenstein, I still think there's a bit of a question here as to whether Rosenstein will relinquish overseeing the Mueller investigation. We'll be doing some more reporting on that in the next couple hours to get some clarity on that. But this is a critical moment in the Mueller investigation. We do expect more indictments to come, and we do expect that this investigation maybe will be reaching its end perhaps by the end of the year.
And Pierre, before we let you go, and I know you and the team and all of us here are going to get back to work before World News, talk a little bit about the person that now is leading the Justice Department, Matt Whitaker. He is a former U.S. attorney, I believe, in the Midwest, and he slides into this role as part of the Vacancies Act, where he can be in this position for about 210 days until the president actually appoints and has a new replacement confirmed.
That's right. He has been a former U.S. attorney. He's a person who knows the rules and regulations of the Justice Department well. As Sessions' chief of staff, he's a person who would be involved in every aspect of the Justice Department's daily activities. So this is a person who's well-versed in law enforcement, well-versed in the tradition of the Justice Department. So, but as Jonathan mentioned, some of the past comments that he made, particularly about the special counsel, will be looked at very closely and may impact whatever role he has in that regard.
Our Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas and the team tracking it all. Pierre, I know you're going to have much more on World News tonight. We'll be watching it there. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate it. Coming back over here to the Bureau with Catherine Falders now. You know, you and I have been working hand in hand on everything involving the bane of the president's existence, and that is Bob Mueller's probe. We know it's going on. Talk about a couple of the areas we know that are pending right now. The biggest one that we know the Mueller team has been teeing up over the last couple of months is the investigation into Roger Stone.
It's the investigation into Roger Stone, who has, put out multiple statements on his Instagram account and all that, saying he's done nothing wrong. But obviously, they're looking into the coordination with WikiLeaks and, of course, the president's statements as it relates to that. So you have Roger Stone, who's an associate of the president. He's been by his side for some time, along with Paul Manafort, his former campaign chairman. Mueller's team has been asking Manafort, according to our sources, specifically about Stone as well. So it seems like it's only a matter of time for that. So.
And not even just the investigations here in Washington, Catherine. It's also the investigations that have grown out of Bob Mueller. There's investigations up in the Southern District of New York.
Right, exactly. So obviously Mueller has farmed out a lot of these investigations, and there's a list of them, right? Some Michael Cohen, for example. And I think we'll be seeing more of those as that relates to Trump. And honestly, you see what's going on with Sessions and Whitaker, who will now oversee this investigation. In a way, it's to keep some of those aspects of it safe.
It's going to be a really interesting couple of days. We are going to be tracking it all here at ABC News. But, just before we leave you, we do want to throw that tweet up back again, because as John Karl said, even though asking for resignation, it is a fire. And this is what the president said. We're pleased to announce that Matt Whitaker, is the chief of staff to the Attorney General Jeff Sessions of the Department of Justice, will become our new acting Attorney General of the United States. He will serve our country well, taking over today, just a day after voters were at the the polls yesterday. We thought we had seen it all today after that 90-minute press conference for President Trump, but we learned better. You will get all the latest from ABC News going to our website at abcnews.com or downloading our ABC News app. For Catherine Faulders, I'm John Santucci. You are watching ABC News.